First, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to meet me today. I greatly appreciate your willingness to share your recovery story with our listeners. As you know, hope is so important at the beginning, and a lot of people, when they recover, they just move on and forget about the anxiety thing and go. So it's real honor to have people come back and share their experiences with others in the hopes that they can help them get better as well. So again, I want to thank you and appreciate your time for doing this for me today.
It's really honor to meet my hero. You're my hero, man.
Oh my!
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Oh
lie about
wow!
that. I've a school superintendent, and I was been a football coach, a high school principal, and I've done lots of things in my life. And but you've kind of you and your website and Stacy Ellerton have kind of got my life back.
Oh
So
wow!
it's a real honor. I've listened to a lot of your audios, with other people, and so it's just glad to hear you in person here.
Oh well, I'm glad we're able to help. I
Oh
appreciate
yeah.
your comments.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah,
You,
you definitely are. It's been it was a long struggle for me. So
oh my.
it's good to hear, good to talk to you in person.
Oh well, it's nice to chat with you. I'm glad we're able to connect. I was disappointed that we weren't connecting, and I didn't know what was going on, but I'm glad we persevered and got things connected. So it's a
Yeah,
real honor to chat with you as well.
I want to do what you guys want to do when I retire.
Well, it's all
I
good for
want to,
you.
yeah, I want to help people get over this. What I mean, I didn't know what I had, so I was,
Yeah,
in the dark for. Sure, you hear that same story over and over, but
yeah.
boy, it was a long struggle. Been a lot of years for me, so.
Oh
But
my.
I appreciate talking to you, and I'm honored to share my story, and I if it can help someone else have hope, because I felt like I felt like whatever I had, I was probably either never going to get over, or it was going to take a hospitalization or something. It was
Yeah,
that bad. I just felt no one else in the world could feel as bad as I did.
yeah. No kid. Oh yeah, anxiety can
Oh,
sure do that to a person.
oh
Oh
my
my.
goodness.
I also wanted to congratulate you on your hard work and success. It's great that you've done so well. Your determined effort is a testimony to the quality of your character. So great job. As you know, overcoming anxiety disorder is not easy. We can do it, but it's work.
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's you have to stay with it, and then as you've said so many times, you just have to get yourself to a point where you're convinced that this is what you are dealing with.
Yeah.
Because even when I was working with Stacy Jim for a long time, say I've been working with him for 3 or 4 years, but
Mm-hmm.
um, even like the first year, or even all the time working with him, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this guy's strategies and all this and that, but he doesn't understand. This is way more serious than what he's trying to help me deal with. you
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
you just have yourself convinced that it's way more than what it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you figure out over time, hey, it really is stress. Can't believe it. That's why my cotton picking heart's racing so much every day.
Yeah.
Well, I can't enjoy anything. I can't enjoy going fishing anymore, or hunting anymore, or going to parties like I used to.
Yeah.
You just can't. Ball games, coaching.
Yeah.
I turned it, all that bad feelings I turned on. Well, it's got to be all these bad feelings I was feeling during coaching
Mm.
football. I'm a football coach, and I love football. I
Hmm.
played football, and I'm like, well, it's got to be football.
Right.
It's got to be football. I was convinced it has to be football.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so over time, you just figure out, no, it's not any of those things. It's actually you. It's what you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And that takes a long time to get there, as you mentioned.
boy,
Especially because we can feel so bad and it can disrupt so much of our lives. We just think it's something way bigger than it is. So I hear
way
you.
bigger. That's no, you're right. Absolutely. And then but anyway, I'll go ahead and let you ask the questions, and then maybe I can answer a lot of the things that maybe others out there are in the beginning stages, like I was several years ago, and trying to figure out what this thing is. Maybe they can use, hopefully, something that I have to say for, like you said, for hope and some
Hmm.
motivation that, hey, this, because you've probably heard this 10,000 times, but if I can get over it, I know, or get through it almost. I'm not completely through it, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say I'm 80%, 85% recovered.
Mm-hmm.
I still have times, and I'm still working on a lot of issues, but boy, I don't have the day-to-day doom and gloom, gloom and doom that I used to have.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's
Yeah, sheesh. And it's comments like yours and your willingness to have these conversations that can help people. And we ran a poll and we're watching the stats on a regular basis, and very few people actually, go the therapy route. I think the statistic was something like 85% of sufferers will suffer long term and not get better because they don't get therapy. And it breaks our heart because we see all these people suffering and struggling year after year after year, but we know there's a way that they could get through this. So it's conversations like you and your work, will help those people maybe take the next step so they can free themselves from the burden of anxiety as well. So let me ask you, do you want to tell me a little bit about your struggles with anxiety disorder, such as when it started, how it affected you, and some of that background?
sure. With me, Jim, it started in my younger years, and I'm talking my early teens. I didn't know what was going on, but I always had these feelings like when I'd stay overnight with somebody, like in the middle of the night, I didn't know what I was dealing with then, but now I know it was panic.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd have these strong panic attacks or fear. And I would even like sneak out. I remember sneaking out of the house, of staying overnight with friends. I'd sneak out of the house and run back to my house,
Mm-hmm.
many blocks away. And then in the morning, of course, my mom and dad would, scold me and all this and that. But so I knew something was going on. Of course, young age, didn't know what was going on. And then I come from an athletic background, and this is what I want to know, or this is what I want to share with your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's some that are like me, but I was always that star athlete and always that captain type of guy, always the real positive guy on the team, the guy that was always positive, fired up, and in a great mood all the time, getting everybody else motivated.
Mm-hmm.
And so when anxiety hit me, which I didn't know what it was, I just had these feelings that came on. I thought I had it really came on strong in college when I went off to college on a football scholarship, and I had all these, I know now looking back, I had all these expectations on me from my hometown, from my family, from my parents, from my father especially, to be successful.
Sure.
Because I'd been successful up to that point, Jim. And I just know it was a lot of stress on me. I didn't know it at the time, why I was feeling like I was feeling, but I felt a lot of shame. And here's what I want your listeners to know. I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment, and I hid my feelings for all those years. And I mean, I'm talking 15, 20 years.
Right. Yeah.
I didn't have anxiety. I knew this feeling would come on, and I'd have it for maybe a few months. I remember a couple of times it was so intense. It was for my suffering was for years, but I always knew eventually it would subside.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought I had this real terrible mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
I was super ashamed about it. I was that athletic jock that was always the star player, and I never wanted anybody to think I was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And looking back, I study my life, and I'm like, wow, I just suffered. I mean, I just suffered.
Yeah.
And day after day after day, and didn't sleep well. And I just tolerated that awful feeling for months and years before it would slowly go away over many years, usually.
Mm-hmm.
But then, Jim, as you know, and as I've educated myself through your website, which, by the way, what a blessing from God, your website. It always came back.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew why, but it would come back. I mean, I went 12 years once. And I remember thinking in my mind, that whatever I had back then, thank God it's gone.
Right.
And I still didn't know what it was. Had no idea it was anxiety because I never talked to anybody. I never went to anybody, and I never tried to get any kind of help.
Right.
Ever, because I was too proud or whatever. I was one of those guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it hit me again when I took on my new job, and I'm in administration, and I also was coaching. It hit me again real bad, and I finally just kind of had enough. Personally, I mean, I hid this from my wife, I hid this from my family, I hid this from all my friends, from everybody I associated with. I never acted like terrible in front of them, like I was suffering from anything, but I was suffering. Finally had enough. I found your website one night as I was in a kind of a state of panic, and I couldn't sleep that night. And I remember going to the website, and I don't know why, but I clicked in anxiety, and your website popped up. I think it was kind of an act of God, but anyway, I started reading it, and I go, wait a minute. Oh my God, it was like a revelation. And I know you've heard that, lots and lots of times, but to your listeners, it really was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I started reading these symptoms. I'm going, oh my God, wait a minute. I think that's kind of what I have, or what I've been suffering from. And up till that point, I was 100% convinced no one in the world had anything as bad as I had.
Right.
There's no one else. There's no way this dreadful illness I had, or whatever it is, no one else could have something this bad.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a revelation to me to discover that others suffered in the same way. Just amazed me. Just, I mean, my symptoms obviously didn't get better in a week or two or a month, but it was just something back in my mind. And I want everyone else to know that if you're suffering really bad, you're not, wait a minute, there are others. This is what I'm suffering from.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like an unbelievable moment. I copied off all of your chapters and put them in notebook, 3-ring binders.
Mm-hmm.
Still have them.
Mm-hmm.
Started studying them like we'd go on an out of town football trip. I would sit there and read the entire 2.5 hours.
No.
Your website, your information,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so engaged in your information, and just couldn't believe what I was reading. I just couldn't believe it. So, so I finally gathered the courage, because I listened to your over and over and over that if you really truly want to get over the underlying factors, that you need to get coaching, get
Mm-hmm.
therapy.
Yeah.
I finally got the courage to contact Stacy Ellertson.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's been a long, slow, very long, very slow, working with Stacy and understanding recovery from anxiety began.
Mm-hmm.
Even after working with Stacy for a full year, as I told you earlier, I wasn't convinced.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't convinced that this awful feeling could be caused by stress and therefore chronic anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I kept arguing with Stacy, going, Stacy, I know you work with a lot of people. What I have is way worse than what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And he was like, Bill, quit being a knucklehead. This is what you have. I mean, Stacy was perfect for me,
Yeah.
He and I still work together, not nearly as often,
Mm-hmm.
because as I told you, I think if I could be very honest, I'd say I'm probably 85% recovered.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there, but I'm getting closer. But I don't have the day-to-day, gloom and doom that I used to have. So, but that's kind of how it worked for me. It just kept coming back, and I kept reading and this is what I want people to know. I kept reading your website, and you kept coming back to. It's always going to keep coming back until you address those underlying factors. Well, hell, excuse me.
Sorry.
You have to edit that out.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
I'm an old football coach. Again,
Absolutely. No worries.
Yeah, it's a good thing you're not near me right now, because I'm probably spitting and everything else. My players knew not to sit on the front row because they'd get spit on. But it just, it's just a step. The step of contacting Stacy was so hard for me to do because of my prideful upbringing, and I can fight everything and always overcome everything. That's the way my father raised me, and my father's best friend was my high school head football coach, and it was always, you're be tough, get over there, quit being a sissy, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just finally was to a point where I said, I'm going to see what this brings. And of course, it was the best decision of my life. So
Mm,
slowly
boy.
working with Stacy, and I'm finally now know what I am dealing with.
Hmm.
And it is just stress, and it is just chronic anxiety caused by stress.
Hmm.
And that's all. It's not something that, I mean, every now and then it still hits me like I get, for some reason, I'm under a little stress or whatever, and I get that old, I call it the old terrible feeling.
Hmm.
And I just kind of laugh at it. I'm like,
Hmm.
I know that's just stress. So I'm going to just start doing some more relaxation and slow things down a little bit and think differently about things.
Hmm.
And the big thing, and I know this might be a question later, but the big thing is don't. I used to avoid a lot of situations that I thought would cause me that I was very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
avoid. I quit avoiding them. My attitude now is the more stressful it is, or I think it is, or whatever. That's I'm definitely not going to avoid it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to face it head on. So
Good for you.
that's kind of how my beliefs have changed.
Hmm.
So that's kind of a little bit about my story. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment is what kept me in the cycle of suffering for so long until I finally made a decision inside. I've had enough. Had enough of this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're not the only one. In fact, a recent poll we did found that 85% of anxiety disorder sufferers feel shameful for struggling with anxiety. That's how high it is. It
Yeah,
yeah.
still do. I still do, and I'm ashamed to tell you that,
Mm. Well,
but I still do. Yeah,
but it's comments like yours, and the people that work with Anxiety Center, including the therapists who are becoming more vocal about this. We want to move it from this negative stigma that there's something wrong with our brain notion about anxiety to realizing, okay, we just learned unhealthy behaviors.
right,
Let's make it a
right.
behavioral thing and not
Absolutely.
about a quote mental illness thing, and more people would get help and move forward. So
Absolutely. And
yeah,
totally agree with you, Jim. And that stigma right there is keeping a lot of people suffering
it is.
because it did me because I did not want to come out or did not want to go seek help because I thought everybody's going to think he's a,
Yeah,
mental case.
yeah, yeah.
And it that just ate at me. And I was like, I can't be that kind of guy. So I'm not that kind of guy. So I
Yeah,
can't. So whatever this is, I'm just going to tolerate it and just wait till it goes away.
yeah,
And it just doesn't ever go away because you get put back into those situations, as you know,
yeah,
and there it pops back up. So
yeah, absolutely.
reared its ugly head.
It doesn't until we deal
Oh
with our
yeah,
behaviors, man. It's
yep,
just there, and sure, it can ebb and flow, but it never goes away. So dealing with these
yeah,
behaviors is what sets us free. So good for you.
no doubt, no
Yeah,
doubt. Thank you.
yeah. And congratulations again on your hard work. I mean, it's first off, it takes courage to come forward and say, you know what, I need help with this. And so that's a good step, and to overcome the shame and guilt feelings we have. But as we work through it, we see change in our lives. We recognize, you know what? All right, there were behavioral things, but a lot of people have different behavioral things. Mine comes out as anxiety, and someone else might come out as depression, and someone else might come out with something else. If we were more open about this and worked on our behaviors, what a better place we'd be. So again, I'm
Yeah,
so
no
glad
doubt.
that you've come forward and agreed to have this conversation. So
Sure, absolutely.
yeah. So you said that you were about 85% recovered, and recovery's kind of this big word because it encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses getting rid of our symptoms, feeling better, being able to interact in the day-to-day, life without the burden of anxiety. But then, of course, there's all the behavioral things too, like all the people pleasing and the guilt and shame that you talked about, and the perfectionism we have, and the performance-based self-worth stuff we have to work through. So this is an ongoing process, but once we know the pieces, we can work on them, and we can
Right.
work on them at our pace, and it doesn't have to negatively impact our life anymore. And that's why this therapy stuff is so important. And I know, I know our members are probably getting so tired of me emphasizing the need for therapy, but you understand why, right?
Oh, absolutely. And when you said getting help with I didn't even know what the it was.
Yeah.
And then that was a huge step for me. But then the bigger steps came later, working with Stacy, because he was, I did all the surveys or whatever, and then working with Stacy, he finally knows me in and out. But
Hmm.
he like, at first he was like, well, Bill, you're a big people pleaser.
Mm.
I'm like, no, I'm not, Stacy. I don't give a crud what anybody else thinks. And he goes, yeah, Bill, you're a big people pleaser. And I go, no, Stacy, you're wrong. I'm not. I mean, I'd argue with my counselor,
Yeah.
but then I started thinking about it, and I called him one night and I said, oh my gosh, Stacy, I am a huge people pleaser. I said, I started studying how I react to people and how I do things and how
Yeah.
people ask me, can you do this for me? Or what? I said, I said, I am the biggest people pleaser on this planet. And so that was just one of about, oh my goodness, I had a bunch. The
Yeah.
performance-based one you just talked about,
Yeah.
or that I was I'm really up there on that, because I kind of felt like, even being a coach, I kind of felt like if I wasn't winning, people looked at me as a failure.
Yeah.
And I realized that because I looked at myself as a failure.
Yeah.
Other people never looked at me as a failure. Never.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never. I know all of my friends and all, never, ever. But I thought people did.
Yeah.
And I remember even telling my secretary one year, we went 5-4 in football, which a lot of places that's pretty good, but I was used to going, 10-1, 11-1,
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my secretary, I'm probably going to get fired this year.
Hmm.
And I remember her looking at me going, are you crazy? People in this town want to make you mayor. They don't want you to just be the head football coach. She goes, where do you come up with something stupid like that? She goes, you're doing so much for the kids around here, and parents are so happy with you. And I just thought about it. I thought, oh my gosh, I thought they were going to fire me, and you're so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
When you're suffering from stress and anxiety, you're just so hard on yourself. And
Yeah.
and I'm one of the perfectionists, and right on down the line, but I had a lot of them to work on. So Stacy had to earn his money with me.
Well, I'm sure you guys talked about football a lot too. It's one of his passions. Yeah.
We've talked about pretty much everything, and I'm a big hunter, and he's fascinated with all my hunting stories. So the problem is when I get on with Stacy, we talk about 30 to 40 minutes about sports and hunting and fishing, and then 15 minutes on anxiety. I'm like, dang, Stacy, you shortchanged me again.
Yes.
So, but anyway.
But you make some good points. I mean, a lot of times we struggle because we don't even know what our underlying factors are, or we don't believe we have them, and so we just keep on going. And this is where that therapist can help us to really stop us and have us look at what the behaviors are and what behaviors are causing anxiety. So that's a real important thing.
Absolutely. I did not know I had. I mean, fear of failure, I kind of always knew, but then Stacy pointed out specifics of things that I talked to him about and told him about. He was like, this is so clear to me, Bill, on this end, although it isn't on your end. And so, after a while, I started realizing, gosh, I do have all of those underlying factors, and I mean every one of them.
Yeah.
And I just had to go to work on them. And you just have to change your whole attitude.
Yeah.
And I used to care, and I want people out there to listen to this. Being a head football coach and a superintendent and a principal, I used to care so much about what other people would say about me. Mm-hmm. Like if someone would say, boy, somebody said some bad things about you, Mr. Kidd, I'd say, who was that? What'd they say? It just meant, and then it would really just crush me, and now, and that was several years ago, and now over the years, I have just gotten to a belief system to where I could care less what people say about me.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lady a few weeks ago just really, raked me over the coals and called me some mean things. And one of my teachers was listening. And I just looked at her and smiled, and I said, hey, you have a nice day. And my teacher goes, how did you not just, I said, hey, I said, I've made a decision that I'm not going to feel any different. She's not going to make me feel any different without my permission. And I said, I'm not giving her permission.
Right.
She's not getting in my head. I said, and my teacher was like so amazed that I didn't like start arguing with this lady. And,
Yeah.
and some of the things she said, I agreed with. I said, I agree with you. I am not good at this or whatever. And I said, I'll work to get better. By the end of the conversation, she was apologizing and saying, "Oh, you're really good, though." I mean, my teacher was like sitting there going, "This was such a." She said, "This is like being at a theater. I need some popcorn." but
Yeah.
I have really, really come to terms with I don't care what people think or say about me anymore. Now, we all care what people who you respect greatly care.
Hmm.
I don't mean that. I'm just, in my line of work, I have so many people that have opinions about me and stuff that used to tremendously bother me and obviously caused a lot of underlying stress that now I just blow them off. I don't, just doesn't bother me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that took many years to get there.
Oh, sure, because those
Many,
belief
many
systems
years.
take a long time to change, don't they?
Yep, they really do. Because my belief systems were, and everybody that's suffered greatly, I think, it's the same way. Mine were so entrenched.
Yeah.
I mean, Stacy always says, "You're such a stubborn one," And he goes, because I had beliefs that were just, I mean, I just held so hard to, and they weren't true, but in my mind they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But actually they weren't. Because I mean, I thought people looked at me as a failure when I didn't win games. And when we weren't, the best or this or that, or we didn't do this the great, I really thought people thought I was a failure.
Yeah.
And wow, that's so wrong. But when you believe it, that's, you really got to change that.
Yeah.
And that really, that takes working with somebody that pointed out to you. And then you got to really dig down deep and go, wow, this really is me.
Yeah.
And you have to accept it, work on it, and then change your behaviors and move on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'll get better over time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, great comments. So, for the listeners out there, do you have any do's and don'ts you'd like to pass on to them?
Yeah, I do. The do's, the do's, if you're suffering greatly, find a coach. Find, like you're always saying, if you want to really work through those underlying factors and get anxiety out of your life for good, you need to find somebody to work with that really can help you realize what you're suffering from and work on the underlying factors that's causing all that stress. Another do is study and learn all you can. I got immersed in your website, your information. And I was, and even I was still feeling terrible when I was reading your information. And it didn't make me feel better right away or anything like that. But over time, the more and more you learn, and you know this better than anybody, but the more knowledge you get, the more power you get over this, what you think is a terrible thing. It's really not, but you think it is. But you become more knowledgeable about it, and you start realizing you don't wake up one day and go, oh my gosh, I get it. I'm not. No, you don't. But it's over time. You learn, and you just learn. Another do is accept it. Convince yourself that it's okay to feel this way. I had such, with my athletic upbringing, where I'm going to fight harder. If it gets tougher, I'm going to fight harder. It made it so much worse. And Stacy pointed that out to me. He goes, "You're your own worst enemy with trying to recover from this because you are so athletic oriented in when the going gets tough, get tougher." And that was always my mindset. But so I could never accept that whatever I was dealing with, that I couldn't just whip it, like I did everything else in my life. Oh, I'm just going to lift weights harder. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to whip it no matter what. Yeah. No, you don't just whip anxiety. You have to understand it, accept it, and don't fight it. The don'ts, Jim, are do not fight. For me anyway, I'm not, for me, the biggest thing was to quit fighting it. I was always resisting anxiety or stress and always saying I can beat this or whatever it is, it isn't going to get me. And all that did is, obviously, as you know, made me spiral down farther. Yeah. Made it worse and worse. When I quit fighting it, and I really quit fighting it, and I had to there were days I told myself, I am not exaggerating, probably 500 to 800 times.
Mm.
Nope, do not fight it. Nope, do not fight it.
Mm-hmm.
No, do not fight it. Finally, that's become part of my self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, it was like, no, wait a minute, you can beat this. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And you just don't fight it. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Especially if you have an athletic background and you were brought up like me, to where when the going gets tough, get tougher. I mean, my dad said that 1,000 times. Hey, when it gets tough, get tougher, son.
Yeah.
That's all I can tell you. Just get tougher.
Yeah.
And well, that's good. That's good advice for a lot of things in life, but I guarantee it's not for anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another one is that for me, that I found out, I would try to avoid events and meetings like wedding, things that were I viewed as stressors.
Mm-hmm.
Going out of town for the weekend, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to sleep good, and I'm going to have, I'm going to feel worse, and just that feeling of looking forward to something like an event, you just get real nervous and anxious, and you get fearful.
Yeah.
But my advice is, do not avoid those stressors. Face them head on.
Yeah.
Experience them. Take anxiety. If you're feeling bad, take it with you.
Mm-hmm.
I read that many, many times in your website. Take the feelings with you and be okay with them. Mm-hmm. Well, how can you be okay with something awful?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're not okay with it, but you're going to be, you're accepting it, and that's the way you are at this point in time.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's going to get better. It really will get better when you work on all the strategies and everything that you guys lay out for sufferers such as I was. But don't avoid those situations. I would avoid them, and it just all that, I read in your website somewhere, anxiety loves avoidance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anxiety feeds off avoidance.
Yeah.
And so every time I avoided what I thought were stressors, it made my situation worse.
Mm-hmm.
Those are, I've got several others, but those are and stick to your strategy. And when you're working with somebody, even the first few months I was working with Stacy, I was like, God, I just don't think this guy knows really how bad I am,
Yeah.
But you really have to trust your coach or your therapist, whatever you want, counselor, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. You really have to trust them. And looking back now, I could have probably recovered much quicker if I would have but it just takes a while to when you're hard-headed and in beliefs such as I was, it just takes a while to get through those.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those are some of my do's and don'ts that I'm still finding that today. I still today. I'll go sometimes without relaxing. I go hard, and I got all these meetings, and I got all these activities, and I got all these things, and I start feeling my heart rate go up, and start feeling a little bit of a bad feeling, and I'm like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to rest. And what your mind wants to tell you is go harder.
Yeah.
And so I used to, when I was feeling nervous and stuff, I would go out and exercise real hard.
Right.
And then I'd come home and sleep. Well, when you're not hyperstimulated, when you're not overstimulated, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That does work great.
Yeah.
Put in a hard day of work when you're not overstimulated. Yeah, you do come home, you're exhausted, and you go right to sleep. Mm-hmm. But with stress, it works the opposite way, as you know.
Yeah.
Now you're stressing your body more. And it's just taken me many, many years to learn all that. And some of you out there listening, don't be stubborn and hard-headed like me. Listen now, and listen to your coach now, and let those beliefs, the strong beliefs that you've had in the past, really study them and really break them down, and you'll realize all the stress that you have been putting on yourself. And I will say, I work out. I'm a physical guy. I love working out and all this and that. Almost all of my stress has been mental, and the way I've been thinking, Jim, about, I used to, when I was talking to somebody, I used to think, man, this person doesn't like me. I had no evidence, but
yeah,
it's just the way you think. It's just, and you're so hard on yourself.
Yep.
That's the hardest thing for me was to become my own best coach. I
Mm,
can't remember, Stacy had a word for it, but kind of becoming my own best positive friend. That's really because I've always been so hard on myself to do things better and get better, and you're not good enough. Um, you know, it's like Stacy said. He goes, "You're always trying to score a touchdown every minute of your life." And he
yeah,
said, "If you don't score a touchdown, you think you failed."
yeah.
And at first I laughed at him, and then now I'm like, God, he's right.
Mm,
I
yeah,
used to feel that way. I used to feel if I didn't was successful at every little thing, every part of the day, and another thing I've learned is, you don't have to prove your success to anyone, or you don't have to prove your worth to anyone.
hmm,
I used to always think that I had to be this guy or this guy, to prove that I was worthy. No, you're worthy without all that. But all of that takes a lot of work, and all of that combined, I think, causes tremendous internal stress.
hmm,
And
yeah,
I still have it, but not to the degree that I did.
yeah, yeah,
Not even close. I
yeah.
do have tough nights, and I lay there. I wake up early still,
Hmm,
and I just say I'm okay with that. And where I used to wake up early, or I used to have a hard time falling asleep, which was night after night after night after night for years.
mm,
Are you listeners listening? Years.
hmm,
I didn't say weeks or months. I said years. I would, I would, uh, I would be my worst enemy. I would tell myself how awful that is, how wrong that is, how bad I am. What is wrong with me? I would say that to me. Well, you
hmm,
imagine your best friend standing there going, "What is wrong with you, dude?
hmm,
Well, you're terrible. Oh my gosh. Can't
hmm,
you get over this? Just get over it. Oh my gosh. Quit being a wimp." I mean, I was saying all those things to me, and that, you know, again, just made myself feel worse than I. It wouldn't make me feel better.
hmm, yeah, yeah, totally. You made a comment that we see so often with clients is a lot of them take a long time at the beginning really to just buy in to the process that it's going to work.
Yes,
And you mentioned that you were one of those for a while, and I understand because
absolutely.
I worked with a lot of clients over the years myself, and
Stacy said I was the worst.
oh,
I'm the worst. I'm that guy that you put at the top of your list. You go, that was the biggest challenge right there. But you
yeah,
know what, Jim? I bet there's a ton of people out there just like that.
yep, it sure is, yeah.
Yeah.
And oftentimes as therapists, we like to see our clients move really quickly, get their normal life back and move on. But the reason why they stick, it takes that long time to convince that this is going to work. And then as you start to get it to work, then we start to get into the underlying factors. As you know, there's a lot of them usually, and they're all interrelated. So we have to work at them a little bit at a
Yep.
little bit. But
Mike, can I? Oh, go ahead. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, go ahead. Hmm,
I was just gonna say one quick thing, Jim, before I
hmm,
forget it. For all the listeners, when I started working with Stacy, I thought, okay, I'm gonna get over this stuff quickly, and you hit it spot on.
hmm,
Uh-uh. I thought, okay, I'm finally gonna get over this real quick in a few weeks, few months, and now it that doesn't work that way.
yeah,
I wish it did. At least it didn't for me.
yeah,
I was pretty suffering pretty intensely though, but it didn't happen. It was not I thought in my mind though, oh, now I got a coach or therapist. I'm gonna get over this stuff quickly. And it's the hardest thing. I look back and I need to apologize to Stacy over and over again, because the hardest thing was I kept telling Stacy, why aren't I feeling better? Why
hmm,
am I not getting better? Well, what is going on?
yeah,
And he kept reassuring me it's a process. And I remember your comments walking through the forest. You got to go in and out of that forest 100,000 times before you finally go, oh, I'm not afraid of this anymore.
yeah, yeah,
And that comment there has helped me a lot,
hmm,
because I've been up in recovery. Like, I don't know, I saw it on your website, I think it was, where they have that scribbly line everywhere.
yeah, hmm,
You know, that is perfect, because I thought when I started working with Stay, I thought, okay, it's going to start getting better every week, every month,
yeah,
Nope, you get setbacks or whatever you call them. I think they're called setbacks. Is that right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then you think you're going back. And I do want your listeners to know that one of the comments that was so powerful to me was Stacy. I would have a setback and I'd go, God, Stacy, we've done all this work and I'm right back to square one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right back to cotton picking square one. And he'd always go, Bill, you are never going back to that same spot.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not. You're having a little blip on the radar. You're fine. You're going to move forward from here. You think you're going back to square one. He said, you're not even close to square one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd argue with him, and then of course over months, he finally convinced me, guy, he's right. Because I would not be in that desperate feeling for weeks like I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I'd work back out of it. And I'm like, holy crud, this Stacy guy's right on this. I better start listening to this guy. So you'll have lots and lots and lots of setbacks. I still have them, but they're real minor.
Yeah.
And I don't say I talk my way out of it, but I certainly say, hey, no biggie. I know what it is. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Especially if we've been struggling for a long time in our life, we have all of these beliefs and experiences that, give us what we think is hard evidence that this is going to be a long thing and maybe we can't get through it and maybe it's never going to go away or all that. But as we work through our recovery, then we start to build new experiences that eventually replace all the old ones. So here's another reason why it just takes time.
Yeah. 35 years for me.
Yeah.
I suffered and never said a word to anyone. Not one word.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when my wife found out, she looked at me and she goes, you don't have anxiety. And I just laughed because she hadn't experienced what I experienced,
Yeah. Because a lot of times we look fine on the outside, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tried everything in my power to make sure I was still that positive, healthy, happy-go-lucky guy.
Yeah.
But on the inside, I was suffering.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have that all over to do again, but I don't. So I'm just moving forward from where I'm at.
Absolutely. That's all we can do. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why, again, we encourage therapy so much, especially young. If because we see a lot of people come to us in their late teens. And if they were to spend 2 or 3 years working through the issues, they'd be done for the rest of their lives, which would be great.
Right.
But again, there's a lot of barriers. People don't come forward because of the negative stigma and so on and so forth. So.
Yep. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
So don't wait.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill, I appreciate your comments so much.
Sure.
There's a lot of wisdom in there, and I really appreciate, again, your willingness to talk about this openly with others so they can learn and help them move forward in their lives so they don't have to struggle anymore.
Sure. The real important thing to me, Jim, and I want everybody to know is when I got on your website and looking for a coach or a counselor, the real critical thing to me was all of your counselors that suffered from it. Mm-hmm. Because until you've suffered from it, I mean, like my wife doesn't get it.
Yeah.
My kids don't even really, they kind of know I've had little anxiety, but they don't really know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But nobody that has never suffered from this stuff gets it.
No.
So don't even go there with them.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't. Well, can I take one more minute?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
I have one quick story. Mm-hmm. A good friend of a decent friend of mine, pretty good friend of mine, was. I found out from someone else that he was having panic attacks and everything. So I started talking to him about it and everything, and I was explaining what I felt and everything like that. But he wasn't to the point where it was just so hard. He was looking at me like, dude, you don't know what I'm suffering from. You know what I mean? Mm. And I kept trying to tell him, I do know what you're suffering. I do. I've been through it. And I know I never convinced him.
Yeah.
Because but you have to, the people, but when you're working with your people on the anxietycenter.com, when you're working with the therapists that have been through it, I mean, they know.
Yeah.
You just can't. I'm so sorry. I went to doctors and I went to all this and that, but those people don't know.
No.
I mean, even because my wife said, go to your doctor. Go to your doctor. You got to go to your. She demanded I go to my doctor put me on those stupid.
Yeah.
SSR, whatever they call them,
Yeah.
And all that did was made me worse.
Yeah.
And I didn't get better till I went back to Stacy.
Yeah.
Because she was convinced Stacy was making me worse.
Yeah.
And she said, you have to go to a doctor. Well, I felt so bad that I was ready to try. I would have tried anything.
Yeah.
Someone would have said, swallow this feather. I would have swallowed 10 of them.
Yes,
I mean,
right.
all I wanted to do was feel better.
Yeah.
Because I just felt so terrible. and life was not fun. Life was not good, but it's a process, and those people have been through it, and that's so important because you're talking to somebody that not only knows what you've gone through, they went through it.
Yeah.
So they know exactly what to do, and that's to me that's the key right there.
Yeah.
So I'll finish with that. I know I've gone on long enough.
Oh, I
I just like
appreciate your
my
comments.
former players, like coach before a game, you'd always say, "Oh, I got a quick little message." And they said we'd all sit back and eat a sandwich because we knew it was about 30 minutes. So
Absolutely. But all good words. I really appreciate your
anyway,
comments.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
it's very personal, and again, it was some it just the proudest thing that I, other than obviously my family and my own kids, births and all that, and their accomplishments. Obviously, other than that, the proudest thing I am in my life, and I haven't told anyone this except you and Stacy,
Mm-hmm.
is taking on anxiety
Wow.
head to head. And you hate to say take it on because it's not this competitor out there.
Right.
It's caused by you
Yeah.
and your own thinking. But getting help and recovering and starting to on my road to recovery anyway with anxiety is one of the best things I've done in my life. Proudest
Wow.
things I've done in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I empathize. It was one of the biggest things I've done in my life too. You know, the one of the challenges I have individually is that a lot of times when I'm talking to people who are just, considering recovery and they've been struggling, they say, well, how do you know? You haven't really been through much. And but again, I was there too. I struggled for a long time and hard. And so the nice thing is that we do understand what you're going through. We've been there. So some of our therapists have just been through horrid experiences with anxiety and life experiences. So they know it personally. So absolutely, it's important
Yeah.
to, work with someone who's actually been there because
Yep,
we
that's
do
very
get it.
important. Yep, they get it. They get
Yeah.
it, and in your mind, even though they're a therapist and they have all these degrees in your mind and they've been through it in your mind, you're still going, yeah, but.
Yeah.
You always want to go, yeah, but they don't have it as bad as I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they really don't feel as miserable as I do. And after you work with your coach for a while, you realize, oh, okay, they do know what they do. They really do know how bad this suffering is because the suffering is terrible.
It is.
I
Oh
had
yeah.
it for years, never said a word. And imagine going through life every day, suffering with that, and every minute of every day having that terrible, awful feeling that we all have suffered from anxiety,
Yeah.
and not saying a word to anyone because you're ashamed of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just, oh my goodness. I just wish I could have those years back,
Yeah.
but
Oh yes. Yeah. We
I
have
did the
people.
best I could. So
Yeah, and absolutely, we have to get it where it is. We have people coming to us in their 80s and starting to work on their issues. It is too bad that we didn't start at our late teens. Just imagine
yeah.
what a different life we'd have. But
Well, that makes me feel better because I started at 47.
oh yeah,
So
yeah,
so you're making me feel a lot better.
yeah. Yep.
So good deal. I'm glad to hear that.
Oh my. Well,
But
it was a great privilege chatting with you. I really enjoyed your comments, and sorry to hear what you went through, but I'm also proud of you for doing the recovery work. And again, it's a strong testament to your character. So again, thanks for taking the time to pass on your information to the listeners, and hopefully someone listening might move forward and get their recovery underway just because of what you said. So
absolutely, and that would be my goal or objective and also thank you for everything you've done, Jim, and doing, and your website. I mean, obviously, I think I feel it saved my life. That's why I came on at the beginning and said you're my hero. I finally get to talk to my hero because Jim Folk's been on my mind for years,
mm,
and I can't imagine if I wouldn't have found your website and Stacy. The suffering, you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to. So
yeah, yeah,
don't be ashamed of it. Get help. Don't do what I did.
oh yeah,
So,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is I know we talk about recovery and we don't want to, dismiss how bad we can feel because as you mentioned, we can feel plain awful day after day,
Yeah.
24/7.
Yep.
The worst, and because stress response and fear is one of the strongest responses the body can experience. It's powerful.
Yep.
And for those who have to endure
Yep.
that day after day, like we did, my heart breaks for them.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just so we're not ever going to minimize how anxiety can affect us, but we do want to encourage
Right.
that you can get through it.
Yes, you can.
Make a difference. Yeah.
There's no doubt you can, and there's no doubt you will
Yeah.
if you approach it the right way, get help, and learn the strategies to do, and stick with them.
Yeah.
Stick with them. I'm one of those guys that I want to do the strategies for 4 days and be cured.
Yes,
And
a lot of us do, by the way.
Yep. Found out it was about 4 years, and then you start to see some. But I mean, for me, it was maybe a longer road than others. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But you finally do start feeling better. You start having breakthrough. I think you call them cloudy breaks or whatever.
Yeah.
You really do. And then even when you go back and you think, oh gosh, I'm back to, that was my greatest fear once I started seeing a little bit of recovery. My greatest fear was that I was going to go back to square one.
Yeah.
And that's where Stacy just really, really, really reassured me, because I would have convinced myself I was back to square one.
Yeah.
Even though I wasn't, I still would have convinced myself, because I'm that kind of guy,
Yeah.
I'm an all or nothing guy. And and I think that's one of the, I don't know, one of the
underlying factors. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I got that somewhere, but all or nothing.
Yeah.
Cognitive thinking, right? Or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm definitely an all or nothing guy. So,
Yeah.
But that helped a lot. So, but yeah, you can and you will get better, especially when you stick with the strategies, and it takes time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
And that's one of the challenges we have too, is some of the programs that are being offered. Some of our clients through their insurance will get 3 to 4 sessions of therapy, and then that's where it ends. Well, you realize that 3 or 4 sessions really is nothing in comparison to what it takes to recover.
yeah, I will say this. One time, my wife said, "Well, what does this Stacy guy cost you?" And I said, I don't know. I think $99. She said, "We can't afford that." And I remember saying in my mind, "No, I can't afford not to do this, because this is drastically, detrimentally, negatively affected my life. And no, I'm going to keep finding that $99, whatever it was, I'm going to keep finding that money, because I can't afford not to do this. I've got to get through this."
Yeah.
So I can experience a joyful life. And so I'm glad I am. I still work with Stacy, not as often, not nearly as often, but we still meet. And so it's been kind of he keeps me on track. So it really, really helps. So I really appreciate everything you guys have done, Jim.
Oh, well, that's our great pleasure. And the thing too is, once we get the ball rolling, there's a lot of work we can do on our own. And just touch back with the therapist every once in a while. Yes. So absolutely. But
that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Is we just kind of touch back, but we still get together though. And
good.
And after when we're done, I always think in my mind, man, I'm glad I talked to him today. So it definitely helps.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. It's a great pleasure to chat with you. And of course, I wish you every success. And even down the road when things are well and you want to start helping others, let me know.
Okay, you bet, Jim. Have a good day.
Yeah, I will. You too.
Yep. Thank you for letting me share.
Oh, my great pleasure. Thank you for wanting to share. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No problem. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.